Well, it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting. You're coming over here in a couple of weeks. So I'm Cameron Briggs from Origin Energy. So I live and work here in Silicon Valley, and I've been here for 5 years. So I run the future energy team for Origin, which is a team specifically set up as a big energy company, really to help us navigate and chart what the future is going to look like, not as an esoteric group, but in terms of really nailing down the people, partners, business models we want to work with in terms of what we need to do and where we need to get to. And so for me, I've been sort of at Origin for a while, but about 5 years ago, made the call to come over and live here because I think the density of opportunities and the people and the ecosystem here is, it's pretty hard to replicate, and it's pretty exciting and invigorating to be here. So what I thought I'd do is just give you a couple of little flavors of kind of what I think are the macro things going on here at the moment. Probably give you a couple of insights about what I would be doing if I was in your shoes, getting ready to come over here, and then kick it over to any questions that you might have, and I'm happy to answer them. I've got a little bit more time since we started a bit late, so if we want to go over time, if that's all right with the organisers, I'm happy to do that as well. So I think probably let's start with the big macro story. The big macro story at the moment is the tech industry always goes through cycles of kind of boom and bust. And at the moment, it's probably no surprise to you being entrepreneurs that we're in a bit of a downswing at the moment. It was pretty buoyant and frothy, as we would call it, sort of late last year, and great valuations, great, a lot of investment going on, a lot of optimism. And I think over the last probably 6 or 9 months, that's come off a little bit, and probably some of the really generous valuations are coming off. People's propensity to invest has probably slowed down a bit. It's probably a bit harder to raise money. So that's one of the macro events. But if you happen to be in the area of climate or clean tech or that type of thing, I mean, I think you can't not be here without notice the gargantuan impact that the Inflation Reduction Act is going to have, particularly from the US point of view. And I think Charlotte might have mentioned I was lucky to be in DC a couple of weeks ago and hearing from some of the senators and some of the people over there just about the size and scope of what's going to happen. And it really is probably the most, I guess, ambitious piece of legislation that's ever been passed globally to tackle this. And the impact it's going to have is going to be pretty profound in terms of many different facets of the whole area of energy, in terms of application, deployment, customers, supply chain across, a huge element. And I think, to be honest, I wouldn't pretend to be an expert, but I think no one actually has quite got the head around exactly what it's going to do and how long it's going to take. I think when you put up proposals like this, the amount of money being discussed, I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, it sounds exciting, but then there's also a mechanism to get that money out. And as you know, it's sometimes harder to spend that amount of money in that amount of time on the right thing. So I think a lot of the details and the mechanisms for deployment still has to come out. And this probably means that the deployment cycle of that money probably won't be clear for 6 to 9 months, I guess, is probably what I'd be thinking at from a timeline. I think, was there a question before I keep going and monologuing? Yeah.
Thanks, Cameron. I'm loving what you're talking about. I was just on a call this morning to Rabobank in the US and talking about the IRA. I would love to dig deeper into it to understand what the impacts will be, particularly in the food landscape. Is there any good reference points or reading material that you could recommend?
Was that in the food landscape? Is that what you said?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, look, I
might be out of your remit, so that's okay.
Changing my lanes a little bit to go there, but I mean, most of the investment banks, consultants and a lot of the big universities in the US have all put out pieces that actually say this is what the impact's going to be. So I think that's probably a pretty good place to start. I mean, I'd start with Google and say impact of IRA, and then just get bombarded with things that are going to come your way.
Amazing, thank you.
But look, I think probably a couple things just to dig one level below. So look, it all sounds good. It sounds like, it's the gold rush and great time for everybody. Well, let's just take a step back. There's been lots of these things before, not to this scale. There was the Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2008, when Obama was trying to stimulate the economy, that type of thing. And there's probably a lot of lessons that have been learned from that. But the really key thing here is that they're reinventing supply chains to increase the competitiveness of the USA with China. That's a really big part of this. National security is driving a lot of this. And so it's a lot of money is going to be there, but it's going to be spent in a very targeted way, specifically trying to help the US reestablish supply chains and supply chains in areas that will be impacted, for example, in coal areas where coal mines and coal power stations might be shut down, trying to help that, and also trying its best from an energy equity point of view to put money into areas of low socioeconomic areas. So it's not just here's a bunch of money, it's trying to do a few policy things at the same time. So I might just kick on to doing business over here. I'm not sure how many of you spent lots of time here or how much experience you have, so I'll just bowl on in and you tell me what resonates with you. But I think that the biggest single thing I'll probably say to you is that the big observation is, as an Australian, when you turn up in the US, it's very, very easy to think people kind of look the same, act the same, dress the same, speak the same, to think culturally it is the same. And I think there's two different levels. It can be, if you turn up here and go, I'm an Aussie and speak Aussie and do the whole thing, you'll probably get a lot of people say, aren't you a fun person, and Crocodile Dundee and the whole, tropes will be wheeled out, and you'll probably have a great trip and that will be it. But the reality is that there is a difference. There is a difference in the way people do business. And whilst you might be popular and good to have a beer with, what you want to be is well regarded from a business point of view. And there's probably a couple of things I'd probably make some suggestions on in terms of what you do to do that. And the biggest thing I'd say is that I've been here 5 years. There's probably about 4 or 5 people I've met in my time who've completely changed my life and completely changed my experience over here. And the important thing is I didn't know that was going to happen before I met those people. And so if you go into it thinking there's going to be some really important people you're going to meet and you don't know who they are, it probably suggests that to make sure you're as absolutely well prepared as you possibly can be for every single encounter you'll have. You've got a bunch of meetings lined up. I think you're going to a meeting in San Jose, and it sounds silly to tell entrepreneurs this, but to really nail down what's your 1-minute pitch, your 3-minute pitch, and how do you introduce yourself, and how do you introduce other people in your team. This is going to be a cohort of people. They're going to be your support group, and they're also going to be your cheerleaders. And to really get used to the idea of you're out meeting people, know what the other people in the cohort are doing, listen for opportunities for them, for yourself and for them, and get used to thinking, how do I present myself? Because there's so many people here. It's a bit different to Australia, where kind of, everyone's, 6 degrees of whoever, Kevin Bacon in Australia. It's not that difficult, but over here, it's such a big market that people want to very quickly work out who you are and whether they should spend time talking to you. And so if you go into meetings, what I find is one of the most amusing things as an Australian, you'll sit down in a big group of people, say 20 people, and you'll do introductions. That's a pretty standard thing. And you get to the Australians and they go, oh yeah, I'm Cameron from Origin, next. And then the Americans will literally step you through their CV in real time, from when they won the Egg and Spoon race in grade 6, and every single thing they've done, labour, every bit of achievement they have, how wonderful, which school they went to, which college they went to. And it sounds just unbelievably self-centered and conceited. You just cringe with embarrassment. But it's not that. It's people do spend that time because they want to anchor people's expectations in terms of who they are, what they are, to set the expectation of that interaction. And I think probably I wouldn't turn into that, but I'd probably lean a bit more from being the kind of bashful Australian to a person who's very calm, confident about what you've done, why it's useful, why it's relevant. So what I probably would suggest, I'll pause there for a second, but what I would suggest, and I know telling entrepreneurs this is a bit dangerous, but really think about what would you say to someone about your company, why it's relevant, why it's good, what difference it can make, and have different versions of that. Again, the 1-minute version, the 3-minute version. Think really carefully how you introduce yourself, about who you are, without being bashful, without being Australian, so that people very quickly get a sense of your talent and your capability. And the other thing is to really be prepared if someone says, well, that's great, what do you want? What do you really want? And not to be shy about saying, well, I want to be in 5 years, this is the size of the company, I'm going to need this capital or this talent or this access to these customers or these type of investors. Because I think, it's rude not to ask, and you might as well be, and people won't accommodate you and think, oh, they're just Australian, they're a bit bashful, they hold back. They'll think, well, you don't really know what you want to do. So that's probably it for the quick snapshot. And it sounds like you've got a pretty amazing schedule planned, and I'm going to probably see you at the very tail end. So I'll be very keen to hear about all the stories of the people you met, the opportunities you created. But really, I'll labour on one point, to be there for each other, because you're going to be travelling, and so each person is going to do their own networking, and you'll get to meet, I don't know what your velocity is, 20 people an hour or whatever it might be. and B, listening to that to help your colleagues, because connecting and networking is an extremely important part of this. And going in and telling everyone how amazing you are, and 90% of the people switching off, not listening or not being interested is pretty, you got to keep lifting yourself up. So really sort of help each other to get to the right people with the right message in the right mood is, I guess, what I would say. So other than that, I'm all yours. Happy to answer any questions about my experience, what we've done, how I've done it, anything else that might be useful.
Steve, did you want to jump in there and ask that question that's in the chat?
Yeah, sure. So, hi, Cameron. Nice to meet you. I'm Steve, CEO of Venosi, and back in high school. Hang on. So, let me just ask a question. I was just interested in your experience in 5 years with Origin in Silicon Valley. Are there examples of innovations that Origin have picked up from that ecosystem? And if so, how did you come across them? Was it like people directly pitching to you, or was it referrals from other energy companies? Or
so I do 3 things to get this deal flow. That's the tech term. So we look at my team. I've got a team in Sydney. We look at about 3,000 opportunities a year. And the way we do it, I obviously can't, because I'm not that smart and I need to go to sleep and have some sort of life. So I don't do it by myself. But what we do to get leverage is we've done 3 things. One is I'm out and about and reasonably well known, and so people tend to find me, which is good and bad because I get swamped. The second thing is we're an LP in a kind of clean tech fund over here. So we get to see a lot of kind of curated opportunities through that. And the other thing is that we were founders of a group called Free Electrons, which is a global consortium of 8 energy companies who get together, and we specifically go out and find energy startups and take them through a program each year where we pay for them to fly all around the world to spend 3 weeks with some of the best energy companies in the world. So we get to see a lot of opportunities. So 800 people apply for that, and we pick the top 15. So we get lots and lots of deal flow and lots of ideas of what's going on. I'll give you one quick snapshot. There's a really interesting company in California called Home Connect, which is a company that's a startup company where I think 70% of the people come from the gaming industry and 30% come from the energy. And what they do is they gamify people. Essentially, it's behavioural command response. So you go out to your whole cohort of customers and you say, tomorrow between 6 and 7 o'clock, can you please switch your energy off? And people can do nothing, they can do a lot. And what you do is you incentivize them to change their behaviour, and you end up trading the energy that they've switched off. So what it sounds pretty simple, but it's not. It's quite a profound difference in the way you engage with customers. I mean, I think the statistic is most people think about energy 6 minutes a year, 4 minutes when the prices go up, and 2 minutes when the power goes out. And apart from that, it doesn't really enter people's lives. And so this is a way of changing people's behaviour, changing their response. So we've worked with Home Connect in California, and it's now a program that runs in Australia. It's called Spike, which is one of Origin's
that's where
products in the market.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So next question.
Cameron, I'd be interested in what the IRA view is regarding the shift from find a customer in a supply chain to finding a supplier, which is the polar opposite. And then the misalignment that occurred when Biden opened up the LA port, but the City of Industries didn't match. The trucks didn't match. How are they handling that challenge of aligning the whole end to end?
Well, that's a big question. Look, I think what happens when you inject this amount of money into an industry, sorry, I'm going to be blunt here, it's a food fight. It's going to take a long time to get the industry to adapt. There's going to be many, many examples of misalignment. I mean, you imagine you're saying to people, here's some money, go build a proper solar supply chain. I mean, the solar industry, as you know, started, kicked off really in earnest sort of during Energiewende in Germany. Germany created the demand, China created the manufacturing, US created the capital, and Australia created all the technology actually. And these things came into being, and you created a supply chain over a long time. It's got very efficient, where most of the solar panels in the world are created in China. And it's not just panels, it's panels, polysilicon, the whole supply chain. So now there's these massive incentives to saying, let's blow that up and try and redo it in the US. And that's a big deal. I mean, you've got to find the people, the space, the supply chain. You've got to recreate all of this stuff. And, you could argue that's probably economically inefficient. Don't know, don't care. That's what they're going to do. And so to your point, I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that's not going to be quite working. And often with government interventions, you just can't predict what will happen. I'm sure there'll be people taking advantage of it in ways that you can't possibly imagine, but the checks and balances will be there. So look, I don't have a really elegant answer to your question other than I think it's just going to be pretty interesting to be there, but you've kind of got to be in it to win it. And, from your point of view, as Australian entrepreneurs thinking, how do I access this? It's probably a lot of that's going to be focused around what are your plans in the US, because it's probably going to impact the US in a direct way. And probably the secondary effects will come to Australia at some point, because you'll obviously notice a difference in where you can access batteries and solar, and different prices and different supply points will happen over time, but that's going to take time.
Cameron, if I might jump in. Hi, it's Grant here from Minosi. I'm just aware that some of the companies that have come to the US in the past have landed, Silicon Valley, and then all of a sudden seen this huge amount of opportunity and almost got drowned by not understanding the scale of it, and then come back to Australia to regroup and then have another tilt. Do you have an insight to when companies are kind of the fundamentals of when it's ready to enter into this gargantuan market and make a success of it?
When you're ready from the company development perspective?
Sure.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Look, I think it's a really good point. So look, I'm not sure if any of you have seen the movie The Hangover, and the scene where they pan in on the morning after, and that's often what happens with startups that come over here. And there's so many people who want to be your friend, who want to take your money, who want to deal you this and all the big dreams and all of that. And you kind of wake up and think, gee, I paid all these people, and where did my money go and what have I got? So I think that the point is they're ready when they're ready to be here and to be here seriously. And so there's, I think, differentiating between I'm coming here to do an exploratory visit and being really clear about why you're here, what are you doing? Are you building networks? Are you building supply chains? Are you trying to find staff? Why are you here is the first question. And then when you're ready to say, I want to set up being here, that's a different story, because one of the reasons I moved here is that people do differentiate between people who visit and people who live. And then they also differentiate between people who live and people who stay, and then people who really contribute to the ecosystem. So like, if you do that, then you become known as a person who's committed to being here, and then opportunities come your way. And there is a bit of a distinction. So I think if you genuinely are serious about operating in the US market, I think you've got to ask yourself, are we ready from a product point of view? Are we ready from a sales point of view? Are we ready from a commitment point of view? And I think COVID has changed some of that, but I think, I don't know, I could be completely wrong, but I think trying to launch in the US from Australia sort of with remotely would be pretty challenging in terms of building the trust in those relationships as well.
Thank you.
That's an interesting point, Cameron, because Mick was saying, it was always like, when are you moving here? When are you living here? And we had a great call yesterday with Holly Cardew, a founder of Carted, who's, I guess, been able to have people on the ground in the US, but also remotely. So there is still that you do need someone on the ground in US. You can have hybrid teams, like some people in Australia, but there is still that sort of anchor point of having that, building those relationships, old school style.
Yeah, and it depends on the nature of your product. If it's purely software, then it's just people, if you're not here, they go, well, are you here? Are you really here? Are you really committed? And there's, same as in Australia. I mean, people like McDonald's came to Australia and they've been very successful because they've integrated the community, they sponsor sport teams, and people notice and see that. And it's the same, it's pretty human nature. I mean, Silicon Valley is very digital, but it's also a very analog place. And, getting to know people and spending time with each other and investing in that is a very important part of that. And that's why I'm saying be prepared for every physical interaction, because it's so special, because we kind of lost that for 2 years. Really make the most of it and be absolutely prepared as you humanly can be. Can I go through?
There are more questions. Oh, I was about to say, because this is the sort of smaller group, I wouldn't mind going around and just testing that, like, one sentence intro to yourself and your company with Cameron, and maybe Cameron has an idea of like finessing that for the US market, or also maybe who we should meet on the ground. Do you guys want to do that? No time like the present to practice. Lauren, you're first because you're the first
Okay.
up.
Happy to give it a go. I'm Lauren Branson, the founder and CEO of Calyx. I'm an experienced founder, and at Calyx, we measure the carbon, water, and biodiversity footprint of food products, enabling our customers to deliver database sustainability and defense against greenwashing, access green finance, meet regulatory requirements. And there's one other thing there. That's what we do. Enough? More? Give me some feedback.
The content was excellent. It was a bit full on, but I mean, when you meet people, it's obviously going to be different. You'll be smiling and
Often
pausing.
people say that
all those
about me
good things.
anyway. Sorry, so go slower. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, but also I think we win. What do you want? I'm looking.
Yeah.
Because what people hear, the culture here, which I find a little bit different, is if you go to someone and say, "I'm looking for someone who can help me get into the DOE. I'm looking for this." Most people will tend to. Most people. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. I'm really generalising, but I will. Most people I found will say, "I can't, but here's someone who can," and be very happy to refer you on and help you, because there's a lot of a sense here of if you win, I win, because everybody wins. And I wouldn't necessarily, and my knowledge of Australia is pretty out of date now, but my experience doing a startup in Australia 10 years ago was certainly not seeing a bunch of people who are always happy to refer and help. It was, well, what's in it for me? If there's nothing in it for me, good luck, close the door, see ya. So I think the ask is quite important in the 1 minute. Sorry, that's enough feedback.
No, yeah, that's great. I hadn't thought about the ask, but I will. I've got that for specific people that I'm talking to based on whether you're an investor or can get me connections to customers or what they are, but I can work on that. Thank you for your feedback.
Pat, would you like to have a go?
Okay, very quickly. We've cracked the code to misalignment in the global supply chain, and we deal with the 80% of greenhouse gas emissions and food waste and economic loss by design. In other words, systems design. You can't fix this by fixing the ports. You can't fix this by fixing the city of industry. You can't fix the problem with the distribution channels within the retail. We do. We do it in simple ways. It's a simple universal architecture that allows suppliers and buyers to set up just like Facebook, no code, right? And eliminate these things. That's it.
Okay, pretty. I mean, I get why you're doing it. I've got no idea how you do it.
That's
are you
right.
software? Are you hardware? Are you a consultant? What are you? And so people. I mean, I'm being very harsh here on purpose, but I mean, I'm trying to give you that. That's what someone will go. Okay, well, how do you do that? So if you just start with, I'm a software company, or I'm a hardware company, or we help companies by doing this.
Yeah, we're crap at the moment at communicating. I've got 2 weeks to get in shape, and we're doing everything we can to get that message right. So thank you, Cameron, for your feedback. I've got to go. So, but really good insights. I'll now go and search the IRA.
Practice. There's no secret. Practice.
Good idea. Thank you. Cheers.
If it helps, Pat, I was practicing in the shower this morning. That's when I found a bit of time that I was actually going through my pitch. So who are we? What do we do? So take those small moments.
So in the essence of brevity too, because we've only got a few minutes left, but Cameron did say we could go a little bit over because I stuffed up at the start. So Jeremy, super quick pitch, 1-line pitch, go.
Hey guys, I'm Jeremy. I'm co-founder and CEO of Missio. We are an ESG platform that helps smaller enterprises align with global standards and meet the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
Yep.
And there's
Nice.
other stuff as well. I actually have to jump as well, but I appreciate your time, guys. Thank you so much. Just amazing, Cameron.
See ya.
Grant or Steve, who wanted to do an Aussie?
I'll have a crack this morning. I throw Grant under the bus too many times, so that time I did it myself. Hi, I'm Steve Hoy. I'm the CEO and founder of Untitled, and we're making renewable energy accessible to everyone. We're founded in 2018, and in my case, it's after 35 years in the power industry. including the last 7 years as IBM's worldwide leader for smart. And we built a product called Powertracer. It's a software as a service platform that traces your energy to the source at the time it's generated. And we integrate that platform with retail billing systems so that we can actually price the energy according to the source.
That's good. I've come across an OC before. And good name drop of IBM. That was good.
Yep.
I love it over here. All that. So maybe for the next couple, maybe just introduce yourself as a slightly different exercise.
Sure.
Richard?
Oh, I see. Change the brief and then toss it to me. Hi, I'm Richard, and I am an engineer that is the co-founder of Adiona. And we help organizations like Amazon, Coca-Cola, and post and parcel operators execute lowest carbon deliveries and transition to electric and autonomous vehicles. And we're looking for customers in North America, like post and parcel operators and FMCG companies.
Okay.
Great intro, great what you do and what your ask. I love it. But Cameron's the expert to give the feedback. Stu from UPower.
Can you guys hear me okay? Cool. Cameron, nice to meet you. I'm Stu Philpott. I'm co-founder and CEO at UPower. Prior to starting UPower, I was the head of commercial at AGL Energy's growth accelerator, which was aptly called New Energy. And I spent the last 4 years building what we believe is one of the most interesting renewable energy marketplaces, which we offer to large corporates as a private label solution to help them offer renewable energy solutions to their customers or members. Certainly the non-tech founder, but certainly looking forward to getting over to Sandford. Yeah.
What do you want?
Looking for partnerships with energy retailers, banks, or telcos as a starting point.
Okay.
Kirsten.
Hi guys. Hi Charlotte. Thanks Cameron. Sorry guys, I was on mute and everything with the 2-year-old roaming. So I'm Kirsten, co-founder of DesignerX. We're a peer-to-peer designer fashion renting platform. We don't buy any inventory, but instead allow women to list their dresses and make money. So we've got over 30,000 listings and we're actually a scalable solution. So predecessors, Glam Corner, Rent the Runway, it just hasn't been a global solution. So every booking on the platform repurposes fashion and saves a fast fashion purchase. So we're on a mission to drive out fast fashion. And we want in the US connections and introductions to obviously investors, but partnerships with universities and also brands as we build out our B2B element to the platform. So brands can plug into the platform.
Okay, so if you're set up in San Francisco, how long would it take to get you started in terms of industry, in terms of inventory and infrastructure?
Yeah, so we actually launched just before COVID in 2019, following an Austrade landing pad program. So we're all set up, ready to go. Our platform's live. We've got listings on the platform. So our B2B integration is almost complete. So speaking to brands is our key, I guess, yeah, thing we want to do in the US now. It's basically a supply funnel for us. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So all of this, like Lauren was saying, is just say it over and over again. It's like learning a song. It's hard, it's grinding, it's awful, it's boring, it sounds really clunky in the beginning, but once you've done it 100 times, the words are just there, and then it's up to you how you articulate it. This is for everybody, how you articulate it, the way in which you say it, the emphasis you put on things, the way you contextualize it to the conversation you're having, but just know it. It sounds boring, but just know it.
I will take the shower tip. I will definitely do that. Thanks, guys.
We get on to everyone?
Yes,
So
Cara.
yeah. So I would just say to you that the final thing I'll leave you with is that I hope, Charlotte doesn't mind, I'm going to pick on one of your other cohort companies, Evergen, who is there. And one of the things I know the people there, and I respect what they're saying, but I'm going to be a bit critical of them. That if you go to their website, they've got a website. So people will look at you, they'll meet you, they'll go, yep, I'm interested, and then they'll go straight to your website, or they'll go straight to your LinkedIn account. So make sure, I should have said that before, LinkedIn, perfect, website, looks really, really good, because people will give you one shot to look at it. If you go to Evergen's website, it has what they do, it's all fantastic, and it has the management team do, but then you put your mouse over it, and it has the kind of funny GIF, which is someone getting hit in the head with a fish or something blowing up, or, you know, Gandalf or whatever. And that's very Australian. Like, it's funny. I think it's funny, but it doesn't, American, they'll go, well, it's, I'm just telling you, it wouldn't translate. People go, well, is this a lifestyle business, or are you trying to make money? What's going on here? Because people here all want to make money. I mean, it's pretty, you know, that's how it is. And so they'd be looking at that. I'm not sure if that resonates with you, but do you see what I mean? That's a very Australian thing to do. And if you're going to the US and presenting that, people are going to go, well, it doesn't make sense to me. And Australian sense of humor is very good, and I dearly miss it living here. But it's something that, you know, when you're having those discussions, you're having those interactions, you want to be as much as possible acultural, atypical, you know, really, really sort of vanilla in that sense, so people just get that sense. So I'm about to wrap it up. Is there any final questions before I leave you to it?
Thanks, Cameron. Really appreciate your input today. I look forward to meeting you in San Francisco.
Yeah, look, I hope you have a fantastic trip. I'll see you at the tail end of it. But yeah, really enjoy it, and just make the most of every second, because every interaction, as I said, could be something that really changes your life or your company's trajectory.
Thank you so much, Cameron. Thanks for your time this morning, and see you all soon for the next workshop on today.
Take care. Safe travels. Bye.
Bye.